Sahana vavatu, Sahanau bhunaktu, Sahaviryankaravavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu, Ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We have undertaken the text Atma Bodha, which consists of 68 verses, and we will go through one last summary to help us connect the dots. And I will ask for some participation so that it is more of an interactive session. And the text started out by talking about what we call in English a spiritual seeker, a mumukshu, a mumukshu. A mumukshu starts out like anyone else does, but there is some connections that they make that the rest may not make. We don't know why they make them, because there's too many reasons why. There's too many variables that make you stand out in the kind of questions that you ask, that makes you stand out in the kind of thoughts that you have. And you may find yourself not really finding others who are like that, like you. And you're asking these questions about the world, about the nature of who you are. And it's not a big thing at the start, but it starts very, very early. And it starts to grow. And there are times when it's suppressed for a while because of whatever, job or marriage and so on. But then it finds a way to come through somehow. And when it does, it makes the mumukshu ask more firmly to themselves, so is the pursuit really in objects? Is the joy really in objects? And they come to see that the answer is no. They of course still have a lot of objects around their life, but at the same time they know that objects can give you limited enjoyment, which is not lasting. So now they say, well, if objects cannot provide me the final fulfillment, then I have to find the answer, because I'm still seeking. As long as there is a seeker, it implies the solution is not found. As long as I am looking, it shows me I have not found a solution. That's why we say seeking. Vedanta makes you stop the seeking. That means the problem has been solved. So there's something in us that is always kind of shining this light. You know, this green light, red light, orange light. Red light, stop, take a break. Orange light, get ready to go. Green light, there's only one time the green light comes. I found my search. Every other time it's orange, red, a little bit of green, a little bit shades of green. But then this one time you have this, this strong green light, very green light, and it says, now I can begin to search knowledge. There is something in me that attracts me to knowledge. So there's a shift from action into knowledge. Now, to understand this knowledge, the mumukshu has to have what we said, tapo pihi kshina papanam. I have to have tapas, without which I accumulate papam. Now, tapas is, as we said, self-mastery. We often think of it as kind of, suppressing our minds in these movies, how they portray who was doing tapas from the Ramayana. Someone was doing tapas for a long time, for thousands of years. So we have this image where the person standing on one leg or and they're like punishing themselves. That's not what tapas is. These are just, how would you now make it interesting? Are you just going to make a person who's just like thinking, doing nothing? You have to make the movie interesting. So you have to make him stand on one leg or stand in a cave or do something like that. So tapas means self-mastery. And self-mastery is, ironically, a long process, but it's not painful because you have the chance to stop green light, red light, orange light. I have that, it's under my capacity. So some of the tapas that we talked about was Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12. Such as, what are some of the tapas things we talked about throughout the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, and also Atma Bodha, if you remember? I'll give you one. Prayer, that is one form of tapas. Meditation is another form of. Huh? Karma palatyaga is another. That means it allows you to have more peace with unexpected results that are not pleasant. What else?
Communication.
Right, the right communication, like pausing, assessing, and then acting. That means I pause, what is to be done, and I assess the situation, then I act, and then 4 kind of results can come. This also helps us to have an equanimous mind. What else? Swadharma. So Swadharma. Wait, pause. So Swadharma, we said that everyone comes connected to people and situations. Therefore, your Swadharma has to take a flexible role. It cannot be the same between a friend and a teacher and a colleague and a boss. There's a certain role that you play with different people. And if that role, it gets mixed up, if a policeman who's working outside comes and carries that authority to his wife, then that is a mix-up of roles, and that's going to cause conflict at home. Therefore, we have to be clear, what am I expected to do right now in this situation? What is being asked of me so that there is harmony in this situation? That is Swadharma. Ishvara Arpana Buddhi, this means we ask ourselves, what is my intention behind this action? This is prasada, that means buddhi, that means I have an intellect which recognizes that this universe is a manifestation of Ishvara. So this means that all my actions are going to the altar of Ishvara. Before, I didn't know that, so I could bring whatever I want, the whiskey bottle to the altar of Ishvara, I could put all sorts of junk inside the altar of Ishvara. Now, there's a recognition that this is a sacred instrument you're carrying. Thereby, we start to treat it responsibly. It becomes a natural expression of your understanding that this is a sacred temple that is kept clean, that I treat responsibly, that I treat with love, and that I sometimes even hug. We hug so many people. How many times do we hug ourselves like this? Therefore, these are the tapas, friendliness, having a friendly disposition. We said Maitraha. The devotee, the one who has recognized, is generally friendly. They are kind of open, they're warm, they don't kind of impose, so many rules on you. They allow you to be who you are, but they also have their own part to play, so they also set boundaries. Anything else? Tapas. Compassion. Sorry?
Compassion.
So empathy, we said, is a natural program that we all human beings enjoy, and that empathy can sometimes get covered through our distortions. But the more distortions they uncover through tapas, then this empathy starts to become a lot louder because it's a natural program. You don't develop empathy, you discover empathy because it is your natural program. Now, when that empathy is clean, that means it's not overridden by personal stuff, then I'm able to provide and extend and reach out. That reaching out, that means that empathy is now converted into compassion. So that's the difference between empathy and compassion. Compassion is reaching out of my empathy. What is to be done? We talked about recognition of the infallible order, that I am never outside the laws, which is, first he said Ishvara Arpana Buddhi, now infallible order is Ishvara Prasada Buddhi. So this means everything that comes in my life is a blessing. It is somehow packaged, specially just for me and you, and that package is unwrapped, and there's a lesson, there's like a little glove, with a spring, and you open it, and it punches. Other times is a nice flower inside, and it's the most gorgeous gift. And so like this, we get boxing gloves, we get flowers, we get diamonds, we get small snippets to reflect upon our life. So every situation poses challenges and poses an opportunity to ask the question, what is expected of me right now, and how will I choose to act in this moment? Because you can act how you've acted before. In that case, there's no transformation. Or you can say, okay, so this is again happening for the 10,000th time. What little different will I do this time? That little different gives you already the capacity, the power, that inner strength to recognize I am much more than this old person. Remember, you're a new person every single second. Every single second. The only thing that makes us think we're the old person is your memory. As I said, that show, the 7-second memory man, if you took your memory out, you have no sense of past. You'll be so in the present, completely like a dog. Just constantly like doing things, like in the moment. No sense of, oh, I've done that, I'm not good enough. All of these are programs that we have remembered, stored inside our unconscious mind, and now we just live them out, and it's sort of the normal. It is not normal. It is memorized, it is integrated, and equally, it can be removed, it can be swiped away, it can be through prayer, it can be transformed into something else. For example, I had for the longest time this little program that was bugging me, the little child program. I called it the little child program. Whenever someone older than me came in front of me, I felt like I have no right to say something because they're wiser. It's totally not true. I mean, objectively, the person can be 90 years old, they don't know anything, or they know a little bit, they know a lot. But then I thought this is not useful because most of my students are older, and so I didn't remove it, I didn't destroy it. You can't destroy things. Someone said you can't destroy what, you can only transform it. That is basic law of conservation. You cannot destroy things, you can only convert it into something else. So I said to this program, Mr. Child, you were a child and I honor that. You did your job while you lasted. Now I'm an adult, I have responsibilities, and I can fully do as is called of me from the society. I ask of you to transform yourself into an adult. And I did that how? Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Through prayer alone, it helped me. Nothing else. Empathy, infallible order, Arpana Buddhi, Prasada Buddhi. I didn't use that. Just prayer out of all of these. And very quickly, within like 2 months, it just took a matter of recognition. Hey, I've got this program. I haven't thought about it before. Let me address this. About 2 months of prayer, completely transformed. And how do I know it's transformed? Because your feelings don't lie. You find yourself in front of someone that is older, and I feel I'm at your level. And that's really nice to have. It's amazing. Therefore, we find opportunities. What is that Arpana Buddhi? What is that Prasada Buddhi, that gift that is wrapped up for me? And let me use that to transform that little nagging, judgmental, black or whitish gremlin who likes to be naughty, who likes to live in their little compartment and not change and just kind of, survive. No, I'm not going to let you just survive. You survived for too long, my friend. It is time to grow up. And that growing up is targeting that aspect of your mind and saying, I want you transformed. Remember, your mind is just waiting for your command.
So you can also say that self-inquiry is tapas.
Self-inquiry is also self-reflection. Self-introspection is also self-management, mind management. Therefore, it is absolutely tapas. In fact, self-inquiry is much more effective. Remember how we said knowledge is less effective than knowledge with meditation. So knowledge with meditation or contemplation is much more effective than just intellectual knowledge, because you're bringing it down to the heart space, you are integrating it, and you're getting to the cause of the matter rather than putting band-aids. So you can see this is quite amazing. What may work for one person does not necessarily work for someone else. That's why we give so many possibilities. That's why the guru doesn't tell you, hey, do this, because that's only relevant to one person for one stage, for 1 year. Next year, that's over. You've changed. It's a totally different person. So the old person's technique no longer works. That's why we have to keep on discovering what is working now for this new person that's here. Last year, this was working fantastic. This year, it sort of lost its magical touch, and it's supposed to lose because your mind constantly changes. It lets you know you are changing. Otherwise, if I just keep on doing the same technique for 20 years, that basically tells me I'm the same person for 20 years. Therefore, we take advantage of feedback, letting us know that, hey, I've changed, it's time to move on. Something else needs to come into my life. Yeah. I mean, feedback is feedback, and I'd have to take that seriously to do something with it. There has to be some trust that you are indeed, this is effective. If I don't have faith in a prayer or something, then we're fooling ourselves. So what do you have faith in? That's where you start. That's where you could start. What technique or method do I have faith in? Okay. So this is, therefore, Mumukshu gains tapas qualifications and now ask themselves, now that I'm ready, how do I gain moksha? How do I gain moksha? Well, I start out as a small person. A small person adding small results, small additions onto the small person, no matter how small that person is, will remain small. Because if you're starting out as a small person, you add a little bit bigness to the smallness, you're still relatively a small person. So nothing's really changed. And even if you do some action that has limitless result, infinite result, that action is being attached onto a small person. Therefore, nothing's really changed. So the only solution becomes to recognize I am not small. That's how Vedanta starts out. Hey, you are not small. If I'm not small, then why do I feel small? And then Vedanta says, that is because of I don't know that I am not small. I don't know that. I take myself as a small individual owing to my ignorance of myself. Therefore, the reality becomes I am a small person. Thereby, the question becomes then, if I am a small person and I am actually not small, how do I make that transition? Because right now I'm a small person, but I'm not small. What's that transition? What kind of a solution do we have? We say knowledge. Because if I'm ignorant of the fact that I'm small, what opposes ignorance? Knowledge. Okay, this is kind of a memorized statement. Tell me, why does action not oppose ignorance? Because you said the right thing. Knowledge opposes ignorance. Suppose I say to you, counter you, and I say, no, action opposes ignorance. How would you respond to that? Good. So what Ninu said is that action is limited, it's time-bound, and since it's time-bound and limited, it will have a corresponding time-bound and limited result. Therefore, a limited result cannot give me access to something that is limitless of itself. And we use this example of a dark room where the only possible solution to remove darkness compared to ignorance is light. I can do chanting, I can do meditations, I can do self-talk, I can do self-affirmations, I can do every asana in the world. Therefore, what kind of knowledge is it? We said it is shruti, heard, apauroshaya jnanam, knowledge which is revealed to the rishis. And what will this knowledge which is revealed, what will it give me? And then we said two terms. Either it can give me aparoksha jnanam or paroksha jnanam. Now, what was paroksha jnanam? Paroksha is indirect, like durian, right? You take a durian and I describe to you durian. Now you know what a durian is. You know intellectually. That is paroksha jnanam. It is known to me, but it's not tasted. It's still indirect. But then when I bite into the durian, then that becomes aparoksha jnanam. Now I have direct knowledge of the durian. However, Atma is never away from you. Therefore, can Atma ever be paroksha or indirect? No. It's always direct. It's always aparoksha jnanam. Well, then if it's always direct, then why don't I know it? Unlike the durian.
Ignorance.
Because I was never told. I don't know what it is. Remember anyonya adhyasa, how we mix things up? So we don't quite know what is this reality. We mix the attributes of mass and weight and size and smartness and dullness, and it gets all mixed up with consciousness, awareness, freedom. And so you're like, what am I here? I don't know. Therefore, you are always aparoksha jnanam. And I have to remove that, just like blowing the clouds from the sky. The sun was always there all along. The sun was aparoksha jnanam. In fact, if you go outside, the sun is here right now. But can you see the sun? No. But how do you know there is a sun? Yeah, that means through different kind of observation, through some inference. You recognize there is light, so I may not see the sun, but because there is light, there must be the sun. The body is inert. It's, it doesn't have consciousness of its own, but because there's never a moment when your body-mind is not conscious, it's always conscious, it implies the presence of, it shows the presence of consciousness. So that consciousness is always direct to you, and I have to discover that. And how do we discover this? We used Drik Drishya Viveka. This was our first method. So we started out by stating that an observed object doesn't ever pass on the attributes to the observer. The seen never spills onto the seer. So my eyes don't become brown, my eyes don't become pottish, they don't become roundish, none of that happens. Now the same thing between the eyes and the mind. The eyes may be short-sighted, long-sighted, they have maybe cataract, or they can have some kind of blindness, but the mind doesn't become blind. The mind is in the presence of the mind, being the seer, it sees the conditions of the eyes, of the sight, whether it is good sight or not so good sight and so on. So again, there's no pass on of attributes. Just like in that relationship, it's the same between the mind and awareness. The mind, we said, is going through many changes and states, and none of those states pass on to the seer of those conditions. Otherwise, if they did pass on, then you will not be able to recognize individual conditions of your mind. So there has to be something that is constantly free of your mind to recognize the mind's attributes, the mind's states of experience. Okay? This was Drik Drishya Viveka. And then we said, okay, how did forms come? Now that we talked about awareness, how did forms come? What can you tell me about this? Anything that you remember? How?
5 subtle elements.
5 subtle elements, good start.
Panchikarana, it converted into
A little bit before 5 subtle elements in Panchikarana. Yeah, now intelligence, good. So there is a form which is an intelligent putting together of smaller particles. But then we said, if you look at a pot, okay, and we said, Gatasya karta gatanyaha. The pot maker has knowledge of the pot. But then when it comes to Ishvara, it is sarvasya karta sarvanyaha. Just like a pot maker has to have knowledge of the pot to make the pot, maker of everything has to have knowledge of everything to make everything. Therefore, this intelligence is, in one word, Ishvara. But in 2 words, if you want to make it more direct, we said it is Nimitta Karanam, the maker, and the Upadana Karanam, which is the material cause. In 1 word, instead of saying the maker and the material, Ishvara in 1 word, which is the nature of intelligence. So this material cause we then split into 2 different parts, if you remember, which was Parinamya Upadana Karanam, which was Ishvara. That means Ishvara, what kind of a Upadana Karanam is Ishvara? It's Parinami. Parinami means it undergoes change. How does it undergo change? Intelligence reshuffles, goes from manifest to manifest constantly to manifest as forms. You don't see that, just like you don't see the milk anymore. Once you've churned the milk, you only see the curd or the butter. Therefore, you don't see Ishvara. Where is Ishvara? Where? Prove me to the existence of Ishvara. You know how many books have been written just on that argument alone? There is no Ishvara because I don't see Ishvara. I only see forms. That is the basis of the argument. Bestseller book, by the way. You see, you need a pramana. And the second was Vivarta Upadana Karanam. Vivarta Upadana Karanam, which is Brahman. That means even though Brahman is Upadana Karanam, material cause of everything, awareness, what kind of a material cause is awareness? It is one that as though undergoes change. It doesn't actually undergo change. Just like gold and ornaments. Or maybe a better example is the conscious being in a dream. Okay? So you, the conscious being in a dream, seem to be taking on the shape of a murderer, killer, or whatever, right? Whatever you have dreams, the fairy. You seem to be changing and seem to be participating in the story. But you don't go through any change whatsoever. Otherwise, if you wake up, that you would be that person. But what's changing in your dream? Your mind. Your mind, which is intelligence, is constantly reshuffling its imagination, its intelligence, to manifest the characters, the clouds, the trees, the mountains. So your mind, in this example, is Parinami, Upadana Karanam, and you, the conscious being, which is as though undergoing change, is Vivarta Upadana Karanam. One breath, deep breath, please. I can tell when the energy goes low. Yeah, because a lot of information gets presented and then okay. So, then the question comes, how did, if Brahman is Vivarta Upadana Karanam, how did Brahman manifest this world? Because Brahman is changing and the world is not changing. So how do I resolve that contradiction? Maya. So you have to bring in an intervening factor called Maya, which is the capacity to manifest the universe from its potential. So it goes from potential into manifest. And this capacity, we said, when it manifests, takes on another name called Ishvara. So can you call Maya Ishvara while it's still in unmanifest? No. It remains just potential. Another name for potential, Maya. Manifest Ishvara. So is there any difference between Maya and Ishvara? In its essential nature? Why not? Because both are before awareness, both are Sarvajna Sarvashakti, all knowledge, all power. Maya, all knowledge, all power. Ishvara, all knowledge, all power. What's the difference? Potential, manifest. Same, just names. Why so many names? Just to give us some more clarity around this whole model. Okay. Now, Maya, when it manifests, as you just said, and it's now called Ishvara, what does it manifest? Before it manifests, what are the two powers that it has because of which we have all of this?
Vikshepa Shakti and
Avarana Shakti. What is Vikshepa Shakti?
Projection power.
Projection power of elements and everything else. And Avarana?
Veiling power.
Now, when it projects and it hides, what does it create? The world of duality. Now, when it projects and hides in reference to an individual, it creates gender, it creates color, it creates skin color, it creates all sorts of different beings, but it also hides information, most prominently who and what you are. Therefore, you're now a jiva. And jiva is, I don't know who I am. Because I am as good as these three bodies. What is a jiva? Causal body, subtle body, and physical body. And when I do actions as a jiva, only to Avarana Shakti and Vikshepa Shakti, then I accumulate karma onto my account, and that makes me get born again. Therefore, jiva becomes an upadhi. It as though lends attributes to I. And who is this I? Brahman, whose Maya is manifesting one individual. So I am now as good, I, Brahman, am now as good as the jiva. That means the attributes of the body-mind have been as though superimposed or lent onto Atma. That's why we say jiva is upadhi and Atma is upahita. What's the definition of upahita?
Upadhi.
As though the upadhis.
Upadhi means which lends the attributes, and upahita which takes on the
As though takes on, doesn't actually take on. Is this an upadhi upahita a good example?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks to Salman and Simon. Okay. So this means it as though lends attributes onto this crystal, but never in any moment is this crystal actually spoiled by the color. But while there's a mixture, you have to perform an analysis and separate them cognitively. Will you ever separate the color from the crystal while there's a manifestation going on? No. The only way is through a cognitive understanding. That's why we say there's no need to experience, because then you're trying to take the crystal and separate it from an ordinary kind of a body mind. There's no sense of separation here. You can't separate anything because they're always operating. Awareness is as though appearing as forms. So I have to use a pramana to cognitively go, this is awareness and this is forms. This is how it works. Now this jiva becoming an upadhi, the question is, how does it continue to fool me, Atma? And then we used 5 kosha model. So kosha means 5 covers. But are they actually covers? They're not actually. They only are covers when I take the crystal, takes the upadhi to be real. Only then it becomes a cover. What kind of a error does this produce? 5 errors. I become as good as the death of the body, the birth of the body. Therefore, I celebrate my birthday every single year. You can still do that. It's okay. We're not saying stop. I can also, identify with poor eyesight. Oh, I used to see so well. Now I cannot see anymore. Or your teeth. Oh, I have such good teeth. Now I'm getting old. Okay? So this becomes another complex. I can also identify with prana. I used to be so energized. Now I'm so tired, and my digestion's not working. My eyesight's not, working. I can also identify with mind. How does that manifest? Mind.
Happiness, sadness.
No, mind is not, happiness is anandamaya, but mind is any kind of experience. Emotions, any kind of emotion that you're going through, yeah? And then you say, I'm generally kind of a depressed, I am depressed. I am, passionate. I am desirous. I am enthusiastic. I'm an enthusiastic person. What kind of a person are you on dating profiles, I am an enthusiastic person. I am a generous person. Now, generous is what kind of error? Vijnana Maya. These are qualities of the mind. These are qualities of the personality. So, Vijnana Maya, I am a decision maker. I am a responsible person. I am an inquirer. I am a doer who's a hard worker. I am a hard worker. And I need a hard worker in my life. And then we meet together. Now, a hard worker wants to meet I am a fairy. So I am a hard worker and I am a fairy. Now, a hard worker needs some fairiness in life, and the fairiness needs someone to bring them back down to earth. So now two upadis come together and they nicely reinforce each other. Oh, I like that you are such a hard worker, that you are such a doer. Oh, I love that you are a fairy. So this means I love your upadi and I also love your upadi. So we end up reinforcing each other's upadis. Also, I am joy, I am happiness, I am cheerful, I am enthusiastic, I am so, happy. This is also association with Anandamaya Kosha. Now we said there's nothing wrong with that, but suppose you change what you get happiness by. Suppose your fallback is something that gives you that firm, concrete standing in this world. It holds you upright and it gives you joy. That joy is also Anandamaya Kosha. But it is a kind of it is a kind of joy that is including all things. It's not excluding the whole. So even to say all that is here is Ishvara, when you get happy by that statement and you work it through in your own mind, that is Anandamaya Kosha. But does that become binding? Why not? Suppose I say to myself, I am a singer. I am a singer, and it brings me so much joy to sing. Now, even singers we've seen, they try to maximize singing, just sing more and bigger shows and more people, and even that becomes a kick. I'm getting kicks out of Anandamaya Kosha singing. So that becomes binding. But if you know Ishvara to be all that is here, which doesn't exclude the person who understands that, that's also Anandamaya Kosha. How is that different? Is that binding? No. Why? Why?
It's called fullness.
Because she knows borrowed bliss.
Why else is it not binding? Because you are including yourself. So what makes something binding? I am excluded. I am excluded from that. The moment you include yourself, who is to bind to whom? Okay? Therefore, it cannot be binding. It is mere Anandamaya Kosha. We call it sattvic, very pure sattvic happiness out of recognition of who you are. So even recognition of who you are is also Anandamaya Kosha, but it's not binding because you're not excluding what you understand. Okay. Then the next question is, how do I come out of this superimposition? How do I make it so they're not koshas, not covers for me anymore? And we use two methods, na iti, and followed by Mahavakya. And that whole na iti and Mahavakya, how is that in one whole methodology? We call that Shravanam Mananam Nidityasanam. Shravanam means wanting to understand, sitting down and wanting, I like that, wanting, wishing that this knowledge becomes my knowledge. Now, when it is heard and listened to and with sincerity, is it just going to be as simple as accepting it, no problems whatsoever? No, because of conditioning. So condition is going to challenge what you hear. You're going to say, no, intuition is, a sort of a thing that exists. But then I say to you, intuition is a mixture of memory, that means past experiences, and inference. And you're like, no, it's not. So now you have to reconcile certain teachings. How is it that my notion is actually incorrect and Vedantic notion is more right? That is doubt removal. Now, after doubts are removed, then you are relatively free to live this vision. But in your freedom, living this vision, old stuff will keep on singing a tune, a music in the background. And that music will sometimes make you feel like you're still one individual out of many. Make you experience yourself like, you're not the whole. There's this nagging voice that says, well, yeah, it's all true, I'm Brahman, but you're still acting the very same way as before. There's no kind of significant emotion change. There's no emotional change. It's just going through life, making it, still depending on friends, still, need a lot of companies, and, still associate with objects, still make small complaints that are totally unnecessary. And so you say, this is fine. This is my work. This I have to work through. Therefore, little by little, Vedanta continues to be listened to, contemplated, thought through, introspected, self-reflected, bringing this knowledge through your personality, speaking the words of what you learned, interacting in the way that I am not interacting with another person. It is a manifestation of Ishvara. Bringing this knowledge throughout your personality. Every opportunity is calling for you to say, what can I use? Where can I use my knowledge to apply in this situation? When are you not given this opportunity? Never. Always given this opportunity. So, how will you use this opportunity when we go home? How will you use opportunities of challenges, domestic challenges, work challenges, traffic challenges, ordering the food, waiting for 30 minutes for someone to bring it, plane ticket gets cancelled, you get stuck somewhere on the airport or at home or with a child. We will talk about this. What will be your fallback after we end this session? I would like to hear your turn. This is my turn, but I want to have your turn after this session. I am interested. I'm really curious. What have you learned? What is your fallback? What changes have you most captured during this course? What things have hooked you? Something that stood out. Something that you will go home and it will ring loud in your mind. Out of all of the things, there's a lot of things we said. What will ring? What will play this melody louder than all the other melodies? I really want to know. I would like us to think about this. We will have break, 30 minutes, and then we will hear from each other. While that happens, coming out of these 5 eras through Mananam, Nididhyasanam, and Shravanam, then the question is, how do I gain moksha? How do I gain this knowledge? What was the answer to this? We said vritti jnanam. Vritti jnanam, that means that the knowledge that I gain is keeping with the reality. That means there's no discrepancy between what is, there's no discrepancy between this cup and my understanding of this pot and my understanding of this pot. It is aligned to what is. So that is vritti jnanam. Now, what is that final thought that we said that makes you understand who you are? What's that final thought, Ninu? Akandakara vritti. Okay, remember that? Take a deep breath, please. Okay, Akandakara vritti, which means what?
Thought without an image.
A thought without an image. Excellent. What does thought without an image imply? Why is understanding Atma a thought without an image? Okay, good. So a thought without image is called Akandakara vritti. So it's a kind of a thought that removes that last trace that was denying me from recognizing the sun. Like one little cloud of doubt, of old conditioning, of that beginningless ignorance. One little doubt is left. Akandakara vritti simply as though blows it away. It doesn't leave anything in its place. It just blows the cloud. It doesn't leave another superimposition of the sun. or personal image of the sun. Thereby, the knowledge is now clear. My buddhi has captured awareness as it is. It is now so evident, so obvious, so clear. It is the most lucid thing there is. It's even more lucid than daylight or nighttime or this body, because it's the closest thing to you. It is you. So how can it not be that lucid if it is you? See, just at the level of the body, we think I'm the body. It's lucid, my body. Don't tell me I'm the body. I already know that. Same thing applies for a wise person. I am Brahman. It's so obvious. It's as obvious as for an ignorant person saying, I am the body. For a wise person, recognizing one's nature as awareness is equally as obvious. And the body is now incidental. It's understood to be passing. Okay. Knowledge having taken place, what is the phala? What is the karma? What's the phala of that? What's the result of that? Moksha is already having taken place, but what's the phala of moksha?
The mind,
Clarity in the mind. What else is the phala?
fear, fear.
Freedom from a subjective fear. Empirical fear may still come, of course. So what you're saying is that there's a recognition that the subject and the object are one and the same?
Yeah, but not-
Substance.
Yeah.
Substance.
Of course, subject, and not meaning in this time, the subject is the ahankara.
Okay.
It's a total non-dual resolution of
Yeah, so it's a resolution of...
itself.
it's-
Subject is not a real good word.
So it's a resolution of the subject and the object. The subject is known to be the exact same substance as the object. So there's a certain ease about, right, the world. Like the world is, 5 elements. The person that I love is also basically 5 elements, and so you still treat them, as a person, but a lot kind of, a certain kind of different, understanding about what is it that I am looking at. So, and also I just want to bring this a little bit more down to earth. Suppose you're now having a dinner, right? A dinner or a lunch. You will probably not be thinking this. You'll just be, joking around and playing and talking about worldly things. We know how it is. Does this now mean that you don't know? Does this now mean that because I've went through this class, I'm now supposed to constantly hold this model 24/7, and my friends are joking, I'm like, ha 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 ha, this is all 5 elements. Is it like that? Yeah, so in other words, just like I said with car driving knowledge, right? You can speak about cars, enjoy cars, not talk about cars, but you know how to drive a car. It's always there. It's just there in the background all the time. So you can still joke around and play and speak as you wish. Okay, now what else is the karma phala?
Would it also mean that in the transactional world, I don't take anything personally because it's all happening in the transfer? It doesn't affect, nothing affects me personally. I know the knowledge.
Yeah, now see what Nino is saying is nothing affects me personally. See, we have to understand this a little bit nuanced, because it's not like moksha takes place, nothing touches me, like I'm totally invincible. It is a process, because that's why we have nididhyasanam. Even after knowledge takes place, I may still take things very personally. So that continuation of understanding that, hey, it's their stuff, I am just one being, I have certain value and certain worth in my own life, and I'm doing the best that I can, and they're just sort of seeing one aspect of me out of 100 aspects of me, and that's where their focus is, and they may not be feeling that well today, so out of that moodiness, they mention this kind of a thing about me, and they may change their opinion next week, or in the morning it could have been different because of the weather. So there's 100 variables that at any moment is changing the world's participation with you, and you are also changing throughout the morning to the evening. So in the morning you can be a lot more sort of enthusiastic about things, like it's just whatever, but in evening time, right, a little bit more tired and less, your guard is down, the knowledge takes a little pause. So it's it's no black or white to this. You may take things personally, and you may not for some other things. You may take things very personally in one section of your life with those who love you, But in other sections of your life, you don't take things so personally. So it always changes. Is that okay? Yes. Is it supposed to be this like one non-attached, total detached thing across the board? No, that's not how life works. That is what we read, because that is literal meaning, but the implied meaning is much deeper than that. That's why we need the pramana and a living teacher. If we don't have a living teacher, then we're going to walk away with these visions of what a wise person is. They never get touched. They are beyond it all. They are unaffected by situations. And you're like, I'm never going to get there. So we establish this amazing vision of a wise person, and it's unattainable. And that's what the pseudo-spirituality is trying to attain. That's why we call it pseudo, because it's starting from a vision that is simply unrealistic. So Vedanta comes and it solves the problem, puts you back down on the ground. Now that sounds for me a lot more accurate with what the Vedantic vision is. Just objectively speaking, I'm not, complimenting anything. So yes, it's true, right? Life goes on, but owing to your knowledge, your deep ascertained knowledge, you really do have a consistent change in your interaction and your participation with people. You do really take it a lot easier and a lot more lighter as before. So that is certainly there. The permanent change is definitely there, no doubt. On top of that, there are some quirks in personality that you still have to refine and polish. And you have the capacity to give and to be a contributor, not because that's what it says in the book, but because you are operating from a different place. The sense of my time, I'm going to die, so I have to do as many things as possible in this short lifetime, that kind of a thing starts to fall away. So I can now do as I want to do. And naturally, when you operate from freedom, you want to reach out. The more there's this individual, the more I want to protect my time and be consumer. The more I relinquish this individuality, there's a natural expression of reaching out and giving to other people. And that becomes as normal as is normal for an individual who wants to be a consumer. Totally normal. It's amazing. So that shift is also there. And you're like, I'm not trying to be a contributor. This is how life is. And you're like, yeah, but you probably have an agenda. I don't have an agenda, you say to this man or woman. And you really mean it. They may not believe you, but that's where you're coming from. So there's a genuine change in the understanding of the world and yourself. And now, so that's the karma pala. Now, what I was really looking for is the karma pala is all of your karmas are no longer yours. The causal body I am not associated to anymore, because awareness is actionless, and actionless awareness has no karma pala. Therefore, how can I, awareness, have karma pala? I don't have a causal body anymore. The only thing that is still there is prarabdha karma, which is just a little bit longer. It's going to last, so that the wise person can, for one last life, enjoy the vision of oneness, but also to pass on this knowledge. Otherwise, if we die upon moksha, then this knowledge distribution is not possible. There will be only ignorant people sharing this knowledge, and that would not work. So that's how the Ishvara's setup is. And when you've understood the final knowledge, you're now a jnani, a jivan mukta. And what kind of a relationship does a jnani or a jivan mukta have with Ishvara? Is it one of superiority? Inferiority? No. There is devotion. There is devotion. Because Ishvara has taken me across so many lifetimes and has graced me, the guru, the tradition, the time, the opportunity. Many people are working a job, but not many are able to put time, reserve time to learn. Many have a stable income, stable life, but it doesn't mean just because I have a stable income in life, I'm going to take time out and come to the class. So Jivan Mukta recognizes that Ishvara has somehow graced me so much opportunity to be able to come and listen to the ultimate knowledge in all creation. There's no higher knowledge than this. And you have come to that knowledge. That is beyond a miracle. That is a miracle. You have crossed a marketplace of a myriad of things and distractions and things that are just not at all useful, and sidetrackings and conversations. Somehow you wiggled your way through. Somehow you have jumped from branch to branch, from tree to tree, and you finally found the Advaita Vedanta tree. And you stood there on that tree long enough until that tree was able to consume you, and then to remove this ignorance that has bothered you since beginningless time. And then you finally smile, and you are now in utter gratitude for what Ishvara has done. Therefore, your devotion is now so much, so close, and you continue simply living in gratitude of Ishvara for having saved me from this samsara. Thank you, Ishvara. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And I will now chant the closing verse of Atma Bodha. Iti Shri Mad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Shri Govinda Bhagavat Pujya Pada Shishyasya. Srimad Shankara Bhagavataha Kartau Atma Bodhaha Sampurnaha. Thus concludes the Atma Bodha, composed by the Venerable Shankara, the disciple of the revered feet of Sri Govinda, the Paramahamsa, wandering ascetic and teacher. Thank you, Adi Shankara. Thank you to our tradition. Thank you to our teachers. And thank you to all of us for our participation. Our course is now officially complete.